Alright, what's going on, guys? It's XLT here, and welcome to the first video on my channel. Basically, what I want to turn this channel into is kind of like a college football player scouting channel, where I go throw some highlights up on the screen of a certain player and give you guys a rundown of their strengths, weaknesses, where I think they're going to go in the draft, what their potential is, stuff like that. I also want to follow the college football season in general, just give updates and stuff like that, big time storylines, players that I think are doing well that don't get a lot of credit, stuff like that. I also want to do the same thing in the NFL, where I just give like a weekly update, some power rankings, stuff like that, 1 through 32, where every team stands, follow some good storylines, players that are doing really well, and players that are underrated that I think need more attention. So in today's video, we're going to be covering 3 defensive lineman prospects. They're all going to be edge prospects that are going into the 2018 NFL Draft. We're going to be looking at Bradley Chubb from North Carolina State, Dorrance Armstrong from Kansas, and Landry from Boston College. So if you guys want to give this video a like, leave a comment down in the comment section, that'd be great. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy the video. So the first prospect we're going to be looking at today is Bradley Chubb from North Carolina State. He's standing at about 6'4", 280 pounds, which is great size going into the NFL. He is probably my favorite defensive lineman. He's definitely my defensive lineman that I've scouted so far, and he's probably one of my top 3 or 4 defensive players overall that I've seen. He just has such a high motor. He gives 110% every play. He's running around the field trying to make a play for his team, and he just puts himself on the line, and it's a great character trait to have. Some of his strengths that I have is that kind of repetitive here, but he has great strength. He uses a lot of his upper body to push the linemen and to get great extension and to force them back into the quarterback. He did that numerous times against Florida State. He just manhandled their left tackle. It was not even funny. He uses great leverage in pass rush as well. Like I said earlier, he really digs his feet into the ground, and he is taking short choppy steps, just like they're trying to fit up and drive the lineman back into the quarterback and shedding off a block and stuff like that. Like I said when I was introducing him, he has a very high motor. He is running around the field trying to cause a fumble on a play away from him, trying to run down a running back, trying to run down a wide receiver, quarterback, anything like that. He's just trying to make a play to where he can give his team the advantage, and that's such a great skill to have. One of the better high points that I have for him is that he has a great mix of power and speed when he's rushing the passer. He doesn't really favor one or the other, and he applies both skills. A lot of players in this class's draft and in the last 5 or 6 years or so are purely speed rushers, and they just say, oh, I'm faster than the O-lineman, I'm going to try and get around him. Bradley doesn't really do that. He does it sometimes when he knows and when it's advantageous for him, but he uses his speed and his power, and it's a rare combination that not a lot of guys have going into the NFL, but he really does have it. He has great play rec and assignment awareness. In a lot of the teams that he played against Lamar Jackson and Justin Blackman, which are 2 very mobile quarterbacks, and he made them keep the ball, or rather give the ball on zone reads, or if they were keeping it, they were getting tackled for a 3-yard loss by him. So he was doing his job every single play. He doesn't really have gap malfunctions or anything like that. He doesn't let anything cut under him very much or get outside of him very much. He's a very solid player, and he knows what the game of football is about. He generates a lot of pressure, and I say that, and it's kind of repetitive, but he doesn't always get the sacks. He doesn't have the highest sack numbers. There are guys like Sutton Smith this year who leads the nation in sacks, and he's like, oh, leading the nation in sacks, but Nick Chubb generates a ton of pressure. He's forcing the lineman back a lot of the time when he's rushing the passer. Some of the weaknesses I have for him, that he probably would need to be in a 4-3 defense to be more effective in the NFL, just because from what I watched when they were in a nickel package and he was standing up on in a 2-point, like a 3-4 outside would be, when he was standing up in a 2-point, he just wasn't as effective rushing the passer, and when they were in 3-4 sets, he wasn't very effective either. So he just generated a lot more numbers and a lot more stats and a lot more efficiency being in the 4-3 offense with his hand in the dirt, getting off the ball super quick. Another weakness was that he doesn't have a great switch side ability, which means that he isn't as good going against the right tackle as he is against the left tackle. He killed left tackles all season long, but right tackles seem to hold their own against him. Not really some big names or some high overall prospects right there, but the left tackles, he just killed them all year long. I'm not sure what it was, if it's a mental thing, a physical thing actually, but he is just an animal on the left side of the against the left side of the offensive line. And another two things about him, that he is NC State's record holder with sacks and tackles for loss. He has 26 sacks and 60 career tackles for loss, which are really good numbers, actually. He's only played, I think he's a junior this year, so that would be about 20 tackles for loss and about 7 sacks per season, which is very good numbers. And I would put him higher in terms of like my draft board and stuff like that. I haven't really made a video about that yet, but I probably will soon. But he's probably higher up there, probably in the top 10, definitely in the top 10. There are teams in the top 10 that need a pass rusher, so I put him in that range. If I make a video about the draft, then you'll probably see where he ends up. But yeah, that's Bradley Chubb. On to the next prospect. All right, so the second prospect we're going to be looking at in today's video is Dorrance Armstrong from the University of Kansas. He's standing at about 6'4", 247 pounds. The height is pretty good. 6'4" is pretty considerable for a DN. That's a very good height. 247, however, isn't a huge question mark, but a lot of scouts would like to see that up around where Chubb's is at like 280, 270, something like that. So he's got time to get his weight up. He might be able to get it up before the combine, before the draft, stuff like that, you know, but that's a good starting point. Some of the strengths I have for Dorrance are that he does a good job using his arms to keep linemen off of him in the pass and in the run. He uses them to read the play very well. I say that weirdly, like you can use your arms to read a play. He extends away from the lineman, giving him a chance to, you know, move the lineman and keep him away from getting to his body so he can see, is it a run, is it a pass, what am I going to do here, stuff like that. And it helps him in the pass rush game as well. If you can long arm the lineman and get separation, you might be able to get around the edge a little quicker and more effectively. He's pretty physical in the run game. I'd say I've seen a lot of people say that, oh, he's not any type of the run stopper that Nick Chubb is. Well, yeah, nobody is. He's probably one of the better ones in the nation. He's super good at it, but Dorrance has come a long way. Last year he had 10 sacks, which is a very good number, but he was just strictly a pass rusher. He was not forcing any run. They would just run to his side whenever they wanted. He was not stopping the run. It didn't matter who was running the ball. My grandma could have been running the ball. He wasn't going to stop her. He wasn't going to stretch the play out or anything like that. But this year, he's become a lot more physical and a lot more reliable in the run game, and that's been very helpful for Kansas. They are 1-11, but I've seen that their defensive line is probably the shining point of that defense. Another thing, he uses different moves in the pass rush. He's not just a one-move guy. A lot of guys are a one-trick pony. They like the spin. They like the rip. They like the swim. And swim's probably the most popular one-trick pony that there is. But Dorrance uses all of those moves, and I've seen him use them in the Ohio game that I watched. That was one of the games of film that I scouted him on. He used a spin one play, a rip one play, and a swim the other, and that just shows that he is very capable of using all those moves and very effective in that manner as well. He also knows gap and player assignments very well. Rarely did I see him overrun or underrun a play and let the play bounce outside of him or cut inside of him and hit it for a huge gain. He's usually scraping down the line pretty well. He is an edge defender, so he's usually scraping down the line pretty well, shuffling, waiting to see, is a Q going to give it, is he going to keep it, what's his job, what's his assignment, stuff like that. He's very good at that. He's a very, very good edge setter. He does extend the play a lot. He usually creates contact with the O-lineman, not allowing him to reach and get around him to the second level, which is where most of the playmakers are on defenses. So he usually stretches the play out, allows linebackers and safeties to shoot gaps and make tackles. And he holds his own in the run game. He usually generates pressure and pushes linemen back, or he just holds the line and gives the linebackers time to come up and make a play. That's very vital, because if you're a defensive lineman that just lets offensive linemen go up to the next level, then you are worthless to your team, because the best tacklers on your team are on the second level as linebackers. Some of the weaknesses I had for Dorrance were that his footwork was not very good. I saw him slipping a lot. I saw him tripping over his own feet. I saw him just not having stable balance. He didn't have very good body control. He was just running, and just running is, linemen can just take your momentum and shove you if you don't have very good footwork and body placement and stuff like that. Another weakness was he didn't have a great get off. He just wasn't getting off the ball super fast. Like, I could count probably 1 or 2 seconds after the snap he was getting off, which is not a very good thing. You want your guys to get off, you want your pass rushers to get off the ball super quick and get to the quarterback as fast as they can. In my opinion, he relied on athleticism a little too much in the pass rush game. He was just trying to straight outrun the offensive lineman, which typically isn't going to happen unless the offensive lineman just sits there on the snap of the ball and doesn't move at all. They're going to have an angle on you. They're going to block you. They're just going to run you around the quarterback, and he's going to have way more time to throw the ball. His last weakness that I had down was he has a tough time working on interior linemen. There were plays where they would send him on twists where they would send the interior lineman out and the defensive end, they would send him in, and they just twist, and it's supposed to create confusion on the offensive line. And when Dorrance would hit a guard or the center or something like that, they would just stonewall him. He couldn't move him at all. There was no movement there, and so I think that he probably needs to get his strength up a little bit in order to become effective against those players. Last season in 2016, he had a breakout year with 10 sacks and 20 tackles for loss, which both led his team, and those are great numbers. Those are probably, comparable to All-American numbers, maybe a few sacks less and a couple tackles for loss less, but those are great numbers for being on that team. That Kansas team is not very good. But he did fall off this season with only 2 sacks, which is not very good. That's an 8-sack drop, and 9.5 tackles for loss, which is 10.5 or 11.5. I'm not very good at math. Drop off in that, so that's not super reliable. Showing that there's a huge variation right there. But I'd probably put him at. He'd probably be a mid first round draft pick. Probably anywhere from 17 to 23, I think, is where I'd put him. There's some teams like the Bills that could use a pass rusher. The Dolphins might be able to use a pass rusher. Cam Wake's getting pretty old, so I'd put him in that range, more to like a mid-level team, not a team with a super high need of a pass rusher. So yeah, let's get on to the third prospect. Alright, so our last prospect for today's video is Harold Landry from Boston College. He's standing at about 6'3", 250 pounds, very, very similar to Dorrance, almost identical to Dorrance Armstrong in their stature and in the way that they play. They're both speed and finesse guys who really want to get off the ball as quick as they can, try and get to the quarterback. Harold, his greatest ability was his get off. This basically means that he was beating the snap a lot. He was getting off the ball as quick as he could. This is very, very good in terms of pass rush. It gives you an upper hand on the offensive lineman, allowing you to set up a move sooner based on what the offensive lineman does in reaction to how fast you get off the ball. He does disturb the pocket a good amount. I know that all these guys are edge pass rushers, and so they disturb the pocket, blah, 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 all that stuff. But he usually gets to the quarterback or around the quarterback almost every pass rush. Some of these guys like Chubb and Armstrong, they didn't usually get to the passer every single play, but Harold does a good job of getting to the quarterback as much as he can every single time that he possibly can. He has a good arm extension and pass rush. This goes hand in hand with his get off ability. He gets off the ball super quick, and then bam, he's got one of his very long arms on you. He's keeping you away from him as an offensive tackle. He's trying to keep the offensive lineman away from him so that he can get around him and try and get to the quarterback as soon as he can, because that's his job. A lot of times in the Notre Dame game, what I saw when he was going up against Michael McGlinchey, they were doubling him with either Quentin Nelson, or they were chipping him with one of their running backs or a tight end or something like that, so that he does a very good job of drawing attention to himself and away from other players, which technically should allow them to make a play. But Boston College's one shining spot this season has been Harold Landry. Some of the weaknesses I have for him are that he relies on finesse and speed a little bit too much. Kind of like Dorrance, he tries to just outrun you on the edge. It doesn't always work all that well. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but most of the time it doesn't, and that's kind of a weakness if he's just straight up trying to use his speed to get around you. He's not a very physical player, so he just doesn't use his strength very well when he's rushing the passer or in the run game. He tries to just basically outmaneuver you, outrun you, stuff like that. He doesn't really take you head on and beat you man to man or anything like that. He was easily blocked in or out depending on the direction of the run. A lot of the times in the Wake Forest game, he got reached or he got down blocked, stuff like that. He just wasn't putting up a very good fight in the run game. He doesn't have a ton of effort when the play is away from him either. A lot of the times when Bradley Chubb and Dorrance Armstrong, when the plays were away from them, they were hustling down the field to try and make a play for their team if they could. and Harold just kind of jogs, doesn't really run after the play or anything like that, which isn't a thing that scouts look at and say, oh, that's a good trait. They want the guys to be hustling, trying to make a play down the field, do whatever they can to help the team win. And he doesn't set the edge very well in runs. Dorrance was one of the better guys, and so is Bradley Chubb, at setting the edge and letting their other players behind them come in and try and make a play. He gives a lot of ground. He just kind of stands, shuffles, lets offensive linemen push him back, and you know what? Some players would turn into a negative gain or a gain of 0. He's giving 2 or 3 yards on that. Harold did lead the nation last year with 16.5 sacks. He also racked up 22 tackles for loss, and he's had a fall off very similar to Dorrance Armstrong. Both of those guys double-digit sackers the year before, and they just fell off a lot this year. And around the time of the 2017 draft ending, people always do their way too early next year mock drafts, and Harold Landry was a top 5 prospect. I don't know what's happened. Maybe people have seen film, maybe people have seen games, stuff like that. Scouts don't like what they see, and they have just written him off of their first-round draft boards. And I've kind of seen the same thing. A lot of players have emerged in the last year and a half, and I think that they have a way better skill set, such as Bradley Chubb, such as Dorrance Armstrong, and those guys kind of go above Harold. So maybe a team will reach for him in the bottom of the first. I don't see that happening. He's probably more of a 12 to 20 guy in the second round. So he's more of a mid-second round. Might be an early round. Might be an early pick in the second round. Just depends on what teams are there, what teams are willing to give up, maybe to trade up, or you know what teams need in certain situations. So yeah, that's gonna do it for today's video, guys. Please leave a like. Leave a comment in the comment section down below on what players I should do next, what position group I should do next, and I hope you like the video. This is XLT signing out.
That's what I thought you said. Now let me offer this as a rebuttal.
Isaac made this one.